On behalf of the Liberal Democrat Group, it's a pleasure to support your appointment as Vice Chair of the Council. Like Marilyn and most of us in the room, we've had an opportunity to work with you on a number of projects during our tenures, and I've been particularly impressed with your care for residents, your level of empathy and understanding for those who face adversity, and your kindness and compassion. We sit on opposite sides of the chamber, yet I know that Favour will be an outstanding representative for the people of Watford, and I look forward to her supporting Dawn in her role as Chair next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pattinson. So would anyone else like to speak? Unless we can get down to the vote, which there isn't really much of a vote, but I think it would be really good to have the vote anyway. Does the Council confirm the appointment of Councillor Ezafidi as the Vice Chairman for 2024-2025? All those in favour? Thank you very much. That is carried. Congratulations, Councillor Ezafidi, and you're going to do an amazing job. There is one other point that I forgot to mention in official announcements, and that is a thank you to all councillors that will not be standing or carrying on into the next municipal period. Thank you, everybody, from whatever role you have taken, whether you've been a councillor, a chair of a committee, provided feedback, got involved. Your time and energy put into this council has been amazing and makes it what it is. And we wish you all the best. And at the same time, we welcome new councillors that come on and carry on this council. So thank you to everyone. We will name them at the next council meeting. But thank you, everybody that's put all the effort in. Really, really appreciate it. And it needs to be noted. So that brings me on to item number 11. Councillor Patterson, would you like to leave the room? Thank you very much. A report of the Senior Regeneration Manager has been circulated with the agenda. I'm inviting Councillor Watkin to move the recommendation.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And it gives me great pleasure actually proposing this piece, because it's showing a coming together of our property portfolio being used to support the needs of the homeless in the community, in the temporary accommodation. It actually means that we can release property that frankly is in very poor state and was causing us concerns about how we were going to maintain it, and this will now become a valuable asset. They'll become family homes, so the community will benefit in a direct way, that there'll be some lovely property be appearing on Rickmansworth Road, and that the homeless will be benefiting. I have a speech here which Councillor Pattinson was going to present, so if you'll allow me, I'll just carry it on. We're all aware that this and every other council is facing a housing crisis caused by an ongoing cost of living crisis, a lack of affordable homes, culminating in an increasing demand for temporary accommodation. As part of robust management of the housing register and additional demands on our temporary accommodation, all options have been explored to address increased demand for temporary accommodation. Officers have been working with Watford Community Housing and looking for a sensible solution to increase the number of units for temporary accommodation. This council currently owns 2 properties on Rickmansworth Road, which are currently being used for temporary accommodation. This is a high-value area in Watford, and large detached houses are not ideal for supporting people in temporary accommodation. Selling 2 of these properties would raise sufficient funds, together with funding from Watford Community Housing, to acquire 5 properties elsewhere in the borough for temporary accommodation. This would mean we can more than double the number of families supported in temporary accommodation and bring 5 properties into available very quickly. Council is therefore asked to agree to allocate capital funding of 1.25 million to Watford Community Housing for this purpose. This funding obviously being realised by the sale of the properties. With part of the capital receipt from selling these 2 houses, Watford Community Housing will be buying 3 2-bedroom properties and 2 4-bedroom properties, which will replace these 2 houses. So a gain of 3 extra temporary accommodation units, as well as the remaining capital receipt. Watford Community Housing are forward funding the purchases of the 5 new units and will be buying the new units before we complete on the sales of number 62 and 64A Rickmansworth Road. So we will not be down by any temporary accommodation units. This is simply the best way to increase the number of temporary accommodation units and support more of our households unable to secure more permanent homes, and supports our objective to ensure we prevent homelessness. Whilst the portfolio holder for resources has a delegated authority at Property Investment Board to approve the disposal of the Rickmansworth Road properties, Council has to agree the funding to Watford Community Housing, as it was not in the capital programme approved by Council in January 2024. The Council will enter into a funding and nomination agreement with Watford Community Housing to ensure the Council has continued use of the acquired properties for temporary accommodation. I'm happy to move the motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Watkin. Councillor Stokes, would you like to second the motion? Oh, Mayor Taylor.
Yes, I'd like to second the motion and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you very much. Do any members wish to speak? Please raise your hand now. Councillor Bell. Any other members that wish to speak? Councillor Bell, you have 5 minutes.
I want to take 5 minutes. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we support the selling of the 2 properties on Rickmansworth Road to help ease our increase in temporary housing, obviously, in this cost of living crisis. I will remember calling for a long time for more and better and more suitable modern temporary housing after the long years of what I saw as neglect of our temporary housing stock. In particular, of course, the state of York House in Rickmansworth Road, as I'm sure Councillor Johnson will remember, and any park councillors going back there will remember. So it's right that new builds were invested in. I may not have always agreed to where they were put, but it was right they were invested in, and we should always make sure that we don't neglect and fail to maintain our temporary housing stock as the years go by, especially as when there is such a rise in demand as sadly there is now. So yeah, overall we obviously support this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other members like to speak on the recommendation? Mayor Taylor, right to respond.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Councillor Bell, for supporting this. Just a couple of things. First of all, we've got a national housing crisis, and I know for some councils, particularly those on the south coast now, about half of the total spending for those councils is on temporary accommodation. We face challenges as well, but nothing to that scale. I would like to pay tribute to the housing officers at this council for the work they're doing in difficult circumstances. And I think part of that is about having appropriate accommodation available. So, of course, I support this. I think it's good use of funding. It's good to see Watford Community Housing also investing £600,000 in these new properties so that we can meet some of the housing need in our town.
Thank you very much. Councillor Watkin, you have 3 minutes to sum up.
I have nothing to say. It's been said.
That's fine, thank you. Does the council agree the recommendation as printed on page 19 of the agenda pack? There's a capital budget of 1.250 million is set up to grant fund Watford Community Housing to contribute to the purchase of properties in Watford for temporary accommodation. All those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. That's been carried. Yes, invite Councillor Patterson back in the room, please. Item number 12, Council Pay Policy Statement, April 2024. A report of the Executive Head of Human Resources and Organisational Development has been circulated with the agenda. I'm inviting Councillor Watkin to move the recommendation. 7 minutes.
Thank you again, Chairman, Mayor and Councillors. As it is statutorily required under Section 38 of the Localism Act 2011, this authority has to report to Council its position in relation to specific areas of Chief Officer's pay according to a series of criteria, as you will find in the statement. But before turning to the formal aspects of the policy, it's worth reflecting that the team that carried out our recent peer review made particular comments on how Watford achieves extraordinary results from our committed team of officers. Well, for the record, this council operates with a team of just 235 members of staff, representing a full-time equivalent of 37-hour week of 212, and it costs the council 14.5 million to deliver the service. Having an appropriate pay policy is a core element of our being able to attract and retain suitably talented people who are committed to delivering what we're committed to as a council. The pay policy pulls together all the elements that make up the council's reward practices. It must be reviewed annually or when there are significant changes to the makeup of the senior officer cohort, which posts are covered by this policy is also described in the policy document. Its purpose is to provide assurances of our consistency, fairness and transparency, and gives clarity to all our stakeholders, and particularly our staff, about how and for what our people are awarded. It is, among other things, it describes in detail how chief officers are remunerated, how their roles are assessed, how their pension contribution is calibrated, and covers the difficult areas of redundancy and early retirement. I just want to make a few points, if I may. While our pay bands start at level 1, the lowest band actually used is a level 4 band, which pays £13.93 per hour, which excluding living wage. This is above the real living wage of £12 per hour as designed in 23-24. The policy also lists a number of comparisons between the chief executive's pay and officers' pay. I'll just give you two. The lowest earnings in the council are 18,876, giving a ratio with the highest paid officer of 1 to 7.8, whereas the median level, that is the level where most people are paid, is 41,418, giving a ratio with the highest paid officer of 1 to 3.5. The point I'm making there is that actually we have a fairly narrow banding of pay between the median and the highest paid officers, and I think that's just a contribute to our highest paid officer and to our staff as well. So I'm happy to propose this policy for council's approval.
Thank you very much, Councillor Watkin, as always, for bringing a recommendation to this council. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you very much, Councillor Walford. Do any members wish to speak on this item, please? Please raise your hand. Councillor Bell. Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, we do support the pay policy coming in from April 24. And obviously, as you say, Councillor Watkin, it's a law that obviously the council does have to have an up-to-date pay policy. The lowest earning, as you say, and he's taken most of my figures already, the lowest earnings in the council being 18,876, giving a ratio with the highest paid officer of 178. Importantly, as you say, excluding apprenticeships, so the lowest earnings in the council are, I think I read 26,873, giving that ratio of 155 with the chief executive. And we're pleased to see, as you say, the lowest paid post is above the real living wage of £12 per hour for 23-24. But we must always try as a council to make sure that we keep to that policy. We make sure that we do all we can to make sure that our contracted services and the companies and that we do business with, they also follow that fair and equitable pay policy. And that's a key point, that if we find out that companies that the council did have contracts with end up don't follow this fair policy and the living wage, etc., then I think that's something that should be brought up, and we should make sure that we take action. And I know that another thing is that you just had the extraordinary meeting of the Functions Committee at 6:30 tonight, not long before the start of this meeting. I think you had to have this extraordinary meeting because the one, was it 2 weeks ago, didn't supply all the information about various aspects of the workforce. Now, I know this is just about the pay policy, but I think in a way, what came up in that links with this in a way, but there are questions, and I know my colleague Councillor Dinza and others have raised, I think other members on there, about the makeup of the workforce. And I think that's something that needs to be always remembered here, that there is still things to be done, work to be done on our makeup of our workforce here, whether it's on ethnic minorities and gender and etc., and disabled and etc. So we mustn't forget that. And I think in a sense, this is, I know, just about the pay policy, and we have to support that, and there has to be one, but I think we need to take account of what was discussed in the Functions Committee about the actual workforce and, you know, the makeup of the workforce. But overall, we support this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bell. Councillor Singh.
I was at that meeting, and the report was presented, and the figures weren't very good. And these figures are on 2011 censuses. And when the census come for 2021, these figures be even worse. So I've raised a lot of points in there. I don't just like knocking organisations that are not doing well. We've got to find practical solutions. And I offered to meet the HR person to help wherever I can. But some of the figures in here are on ethnic minorities. One of the questions I raised, I get this all the time in other organisations, or we select on ability. I mean, in our corporate directors, there's not a single person from the BME community. I accept that it's a small number. We had a chief executive before, and when in a small number, 1 or 2 people leave, it does distort the figures. But there are other figures in there. I will ask people to look at the report that how our town is diverse, our council is not. And if the figures are, I did use the term, I apologize in advance if some people don't like it. I did use the term the Guinness effect. Some of the black people we have, I use the term black as for ethnic minorities. They're in the lower grades, not in the upper grades where the decisions are made. I get this in all the organization. I'm happy to put proposals that we need to take positive steps. We need to get, our advertising is done. Probably the people who are already there, they tell their mates or their friends, or there's a job in the council, apply. If it's mainly all white people, they're going to tell their friends. We need to get out to the communities like the mosques, Gurdwara, synagogue, the mandir. Go out there, send officers there to go and talk to them. Give people a tour of the council. To some people, the council could be daunting. You might not know what it looks like. I work in the prison service. We did it in the prison. We brought people from outside. And also, we need to get a diversity group set up in the council. And even the people from the community can come and talk to them. What are the differences? Like, for example, I asked the question, Ramadan started today. Have we set something for, I'm a union official in my workplace. 2 members asked for reasonable adjustments during Ramadan. And one of the managers came back and said, business needs, can't allow it. Yet he was allowed for 2 years and the work was done. Just because he's had a bit of a fallout, business needs were used. And these are the issues that we need to really address. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Singh. Would any other members wish to speak on the recommendation item number 12? No. Councillor Walford, you reserved the right to speak? You okay? Councillor Watkin, can you sum up, please?
Thank you very much, Chairman. Well, I'm delighted that Councillor Bell supports our pay policy. And yes, Councillor Dinser did go to great lengths in our functions committee before this to challenge officers about some of the data. One of the key points we have with our data is that less than 50% of our staff at the present are reporting the data that we need to have a clear understanding of just exactly what the makeup of our community is, whether they're disabled, what their faiths are. And so it is very difficult to be able to give clear, absolutely recorded information about what our makeup of our workforce is. I think we are a lot more diverse than he's just indicated. I think we just simply have to look around the offices when we're working here and we see people from multiple communities. But for whatever reason, our data doesn't particularly doesn't record that in a way that we can say to Councillor Dinser that our workforce is as diverse as he and we all would like. I mean, nobody wants anything other than the people of Watford to feel this is their council. They should have a job here like anybody else, whatever their background, whatever their culture, whatever their faith. And I just think that the other point to make is, you know, we are a very small team. I made that point in my earlier speech. So frankly, it's not easy to suddenly change the constitution of this workforce. The number of people who leave us and join is probably just over single figures in a year. So it will take time if Councillor Dinser is expecting this council to become very diverse compared to what it is now. It will take some years. But I think his points are well made. We have to go out, we have to talk to the community, make them feel that this is a council they can apply for. When the jobs do come available, the more diverse the applicants, the better.
Thank you very much, Councillor Watkin, for summing up. I'd now like to move on to the recommendation from item number 12. Does the council agree the recommendation as shown on page 24 of the agenda? 1, that council approves the council pay policy statement dated April 2024. All those in favour, please show. That has been carried. Thank you very much. That now brings us to item number 13, the motions. 3 motions have been received under the rules procedures number 13. We'll go through them in order of receipt by the Democratic Services Manager. I'd like to remind all councillors that the mover of the motion has up to 7 minutes with a right to reply up to 3 minutes. Everyone else has up to 5 minutes. The first motion this council has received is fly tipping. The first motion has been proposed by Councillor Traybar and seconded by Councillor Watling. Is that correct? Yep. Details are contained in the agenda. I've received an amendment to the original motion proposed by Councillor Rodriguez and seconded by Councillor Williams. It's been circulated to all members and will be uploaded to the council's website as soon as possible by Democratic Services. So just double check, has everybody got the original motion and the amended motion? Excellent. I now invite Councillor Traybar to move the original motion. 7 minutes.
Thank you, and apologies for my coughing fit earlier, and thank you to the Chief Executive for looking after me. I really hope I don't have a coughing fit now, but sadly I work in the biggest school in Hertfordshire, so sadly colds and coughs go along with it. Okay, we live in a beautiful town with many beautiful parks and green spaces, which are enjoyed every day by our residents. What a shame it is, therefore, that if you turn down any main street in Watford, on many corners of that street, you'll see at least one item of rubbish left on the floor or a household item dumped. Sustainable Watford is the rebranded new environmental strategy 2023 to 2030 and delivery plan 2023 to 2025. However, it does not deal with the central issue which consistently plagues Watford: disgusting, disgraceful and unsafe fly tipping. According to the Watford Observer on the 21st of January, the number of fly tipping incidents in Watford apparently decreased last year from 1,342 to 1,168. I would argue that these are reported cases and do not show the true extent of the problem. Veolia do an excellent job of picking up fly tipping in Watford in areas they know and regularly pick up rubbish from hotspots in these areas. They should be commended for their service. However, not all these areas are reported regularly because the fly tipping is often picked up the next day by Veolia. This does not go to the root of the problem. We need CCTV to be circulated to different places to catch the perpetrators and deter them. Where the current CCTV is placed is based on recorded hotspots, not other areas which need to be considered. Not on how often the residents, the victims in this crime, are reporting it, but based on areas where there is constantly fly tipping and Veolia regularly pick up rubbish from. Fly tipping is not a victimless crime. We are all victims of it. We need to show across the whole town that we are taking it seriously and that we are actively acting to stop it across all wards. We have to use all resources on hand to tackle this. CCTV and hefty fines are one of the best ways to deter criminals who fly tip, but there are other methods we should consider at the same time. This council resolves that the mayor should encourage the residents and businesses to behave responsibly and with community spirit to avoid littering. This could be achieved through the use of social media and printouts outlets, such as My Watford magazine, to inform residents that fly tipping is illegal and tell them that we are actively working to bring the criminals to justice. We should also inform them of how to arrange for large items to be collected by the council to create greater awareness. 2, we should continue working to promote and encourage measures and initiatives to reduce waste and support more reuse and more recycling. We should commend and thank Veolia for all their hard work and continue to work with the contractors of the council to fulfil their obligations to keep our borough clean. We should continue to support robust enforcement, including via CCTV evidence directed at those making Watford a less pleasant place to be, and where possible, increase CCTV into other known flying areas. Now, I would like to take you all back to 2017, the year that Trump was sworn in as the 45th President of the United States, and the year that Theresa May's general election backfired and the Conservatives were forced to resort on support from the DUP. It was also the year that my wonderful predecessor, Mo Mills, brought in a motion to this council calling on the then councillors to show that they were taking the issue of fly tipping seriously by installing CCTV cameras at the notorious dumping areas such as Chester Road. The motion was voted down by the Lib Dem councillors, one of whom said CCTV can be helpful, in particular where vehicles are being used for dumping. This is, however, not the situation in this area, as Councillor Mills has been informed. Now, I can assure you that this is now definitely the case. And of course, we do have CCTV now in Watford for fly tipping, but not in Chester Road. Residents are just as frustrated and disgusted with it now as they were then in 2017. When I wrote to the Mayor last month, he said the road, Chester Road, was number 10 in 2023 for the most fly tipping in Watford. Seemingly, victim-blaming residents are not reporting it often enough. I repeat again what I previously said about Veolia, because they really do an excellent job. But they know that Chester Road is a hotspot. They know it's in that top 10. They know exactly where it is, which is why they go there. But this is not solving the root of the problem. My vicarage residents and residents from other wards are constantly approaching me to discuss the fly tipping problems in Watford. And this is absolutely true. When we did the skips, literally 3 residents from vicarage came to me and they complained about the fly tipping in that area. It really is a blot on our landscape. And sadly, it's little surprise to the residents that a film crew chose this weekend to turn a Watford Park into a fly tip. I was really pleased to see the recent increase in social media posts from Watford Council regarding fly tipping, and that Cabinet last week announced that it's going to double the maximum fine. That's fantastic. We have to use all resources to handle fly tipping, not just CCTV. And we have to ask ourselves, are we, as a council, doing everything we can to deter it from happening in our town and to find and prosecute the criminals who target certain areas like Chester Road, and that we are doing our bit to educate our residents about how to get rid of unwanted items safely, legally and correctly? By agreeing to this motion, fellow councillors, you are affirming that we do take fly tipping seriously and that we will continue to work to prevent it happening. I sincerely hope you will show all our residents that you care by voting for this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Trayber, for bringing this motion to council. Councillor Watling, would you like to second? 5 minutes, please.
Can I reserve my right to speak at the end?
You can reserve your right to speak, and I will keep that note ready shortly. So we have also received an amendment to the motion. So I invite Councillor Rodriguez to move the amendment. 5 minutes.
Chairman, Mayor, members, we have proposed an amendment to Labour's motion for 2 main reasons. Firstly, we do not recognise the picture that Labour paints of fly tipping in Watford, and we also do not feel that Labour's proposal will work. We agree with Labour that Watford is a beautiful town to live in. This Labour motion does raise the issue of fly tipping in Watford, without mentioning that fly tipping is an issue throughout the country. Whilst we acknowledge that there is fly tipping in Watford, we do not accept that you will find it on most main roads, and do not accept that its level can be considered a plague. In fact, the recent Vitality Index highlighted that Watford is the #1 place to live and work in the country. Labour's proposal to use CCTV cameras to deter fly tipping is not a viable solution. The cost of moving one CCTV camera runs into thousands of pounds. In addition, you would need multiple CCTV cameras on each road, as you would need to see which house or car the culprit was coming out of, whether they came from another road, etc. I saw for myself on a recent visit to Watford's new CCTV control centre how CCTVs need to be part of a larger network of cameras to be effective. Labour know themselves that CCTV is not economically viable. As in their full budget amendment 6 weeks ago, Labour only proposed moving one CCTV camera. Whilst recognising that CCTV cameras are not the solution, Watford has an embedded plan to issue fines to those who fly tip. In fact, whilst not having the most fly tipping incidents in 22-23, Watford issued the most FPNs in Hertfordshire last year. In the ratio of FPNs issued to fly tipping incidents, Watford performed second best in Hertfordshire and 263% better than the average. By any measure, this must be considered a very strong performance. In addition, in last week's cabinet, the fly tipping fines were increased from £300 to £600. In contrast to what Councillor Traber has just said, in Watford, the fly tipping figures include not only what was reported by residents, but also any unreported fly tipping that was located by Viola Street operatives. Whilst there are fly tipping hotspots, the council does seek to address these issues. For example, we are trialling an education campaign for certain hotspot streets in Callowland. This involved writing to all residents on these roads, detailing how they can dispose of their bulky items and how to report fly tipping. There are posters on street corners, and each week we are installing mock crime scene tape, and fly tipping is left in a situation for a number of days. This is to encourage discussion amongst residents. To get buy-in to this initiative, we did write to all 3 Callowland ward councillors, asking for their support and if they had any feedback. No negative feedback or suggestions for any other action was received. The Labour motion asks that we use the About Watford magazine to promote recycling in Watford. This is something that is already undertaken frequently. However, the council's approach to recycling is far more detailed, including many social media campaigns. In fact, Watford continues to outperform similar areas on recycling. This has been recognised by the Office for Local Government, who have invited Watford Council officers to present to other councils their strategy on recycling. This Lib Dem amendment to the motion seeks to continue to maintain the hard work and focus the council has in effectively dealing with fly tipping, and also to encourage residents to reduce waste and recycle more. Whilst Watford has a very strong performance in issuing FPNs, this motion recognises the need to maintain the focus in this area. I would therefore ask all members to support this amendment, as the approach adopted by Watford has proven to be an effective and a viable approach to issuing FPNs, dealing with fly tipping, and with Watford performing extremely well across Hertfordshire.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rodriguez. I invite Councillor Williams to second the amendment.
Thank you very much. I'd like to second the amendment and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you very much. I would now like to I'd now like to invite members to debate the motion and the amendment. You will have, is it 5 minutes? 5 minutes per member, and that will be based on the motion and the amendment, so it won't be 2 separate debates. Please raise your hands if you'd like to speak on this motion. Councillor Shaw. Councillor Bell. Tremaine. Taylor. Dinser. Checked it. Councillor Stokesbury. Have I got everybody? Excellent. Let's begin the debate. Councillor Shaw.
I just want to echo what Sarah just mentioned, my colleague. I actually live on Chester Road, and there is lots of fly tipping on Chester Road, and there are hotspots. I've got 2 disabled parents, so in the evening when I finish with my parents and I walk home, you see nothing on Durban Road East, corner of Chester Road or Addiscombe Road. But in the morning, I'm an early riser, and sometimes when I walk to the gym at 5:30 or 6, you'll see sofas, you'll see mattresses, you'll see dining tables, bulk stuff sitting there. By the time I come back, like she said, Viola does do a good job, the stuff is gone. But then how do we catch these culprits? It's done in the middle of the night. There is a desperate need for cameras, especially on the hotspots in Vicarage. There's a great need, especially on corner of Chester Road and Durban Road East. So I just want to bring that to, because I actually live on the road and you see it all the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Shah. Thank you. Councillor Bell, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I'd like Rise to support our Labour motion. And what a very good motion this is, pointing out that to so many residents, the scourge of fly tipping in our town. And, you know, before we get on to the amendment, I think the good thing is that at least we're all discussing it. Us, Councillor Sarah Jones-Ever bringing this motion here has just got us discussing it all again. Obviously, we'll get to the amendment, but I mean, the good thing is I'm sure residents across the town, whatever their views will say, well, at least they're actually discussing something that we think is a major issue. Now, we can quote figures around about more fines, less fly tipping, but from what many residents tell us, they often feel that this problem is a big problem and a blight on their community and neighbourhood, as Councillor Trebar said. Of course, councillors using their neighbourhood locality funds to pay for skips, as a lot of us did over the last couple of weeks, to clear up the local community, bring the residents working together, is a very good example how all of us can work in a practical way while using council taxpayers' money. We need more work like that across wards of all communities to get residents, whether they're homeowners or renters, feel they have ownership of their area. Now, I know that separately, Councillor Dennis Watling has done many hours of litter picking with residents in Calaland. I've been amazed at his social media and doorstep reaction. You know, I'm not, as everyone knows, I'm not a social media person, but I see the reaction that Dennis gets, and it's just unbelievable. But I didn't realise that would happen. Councillor Trebar herself is well known since she's been elected in 2021 as always quick to respond to residents' calls and questions. I mean, she comes to me for advice all the time, and I go tell her what officers, and it's not just Sonia Packett at the parking shop, although she is the top council officer for her turnaround, as we all know. But it's so much, Sarah Trebar is onto it on everything, but clearly her hard work on fly tipping and complaints are high on the list. And I also pay tribute, obviously, to the work of Councillor Clark Taylor and in organising voluntary clean-ups with residents in Oxley Ward, as this all adds to the important backup work to the statutory work of Veolia. So that's really good what's happening in Oxley. And I'm sure there's other councillors in other wards who have brought their residents together in voluntary clean-ups. And we know that we've got the clean-up coming up, the spring clean that's starting, I think it's from the 15th this Friday. It's a national thing, but I'm sure we'll all be involved in that as well. So, as I say, the principle of seeing the use of CCTV being rolled out across the town to different sites, I think is vital in combating this scourge. And that's why I urge the Mayor and this council to think again about a site such as Chester Road. Now, it's interesting because Councillor Rodriguez saying, oh, you know, because of the financial cost, Labour are wrong to raise this. But of course, we don't say in the motion that this is the only thing to do, that all we can do. I mean, that's CCTV and hefty fines are one of the best ways to deter criminals, but it's not the only way. And that's why Councillor Trebar has listed other things that can be done. So it's not saying everything should be about CCTV. And I know that, of course, in the budget, it said it would be £4,000 to move and put that CCTV at the Chester Road site. We put that forward in our budget proposal. That was rejected. Fine, but that's what it would have been there. And if that, what we're saying is in the motion is to be able to move the CCTV, the mobile CCTV, around so that we can pick up other areas, right? Whether it's Calaland, whether it's Vicarage Ward, whether sometimes it's part of Park, I don't know. But I mean, to actually be able to move around. So I think we could all come together on that in the end. And I'll leave it to, obviously, Councillor Trebar when she sums up about how she views the amendment. But overall, I think this is an excellent motion by the Labour side with our two most hard-working councillors, and I hope that in the end people can support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mayor Taylor.
Thank you very much. I won't speak for long. I just want to make a few points. First of all, I actually agree with about 90% of what the Labour councillors said. But I just want to pick up on a few things. So the first thing that Councillor Trebar said was that my response to her, there was victim blaming. I want to be really clear. My response set out some facts. It just gave the figures. I think the important thing, as Councillor Rodriguez made, the figures for fly tipping aren't just those fly tips that residents report. If Veolia collect fly tipping, that goes down as a fly tip as well in our statistics. And so it was based on the facts. I wasn't blaming anybody on that street. I was pointing out the facts as presented to me by council officers and Veolia. I would like to pay tribute to the work that councillors do of both parties on this, of officers and Veolia, for the service that they provide. We do take it very, very seriously. One aspect of the Labour motion that I found interesting was, of course, that they said we should be using the council magazine in order to have a lot of information about this. We all sat here at the last meeting when Labour said we should abolish the council magazine. So I think there's a level of inconsistency there. I was also quite surprised that Councillor Bell said that he wasn't a social media star. I thought he had a TikTok account that we all looked at frequently. But on a serious point, I think when it comes to CCTV, what we need to do is actually look at the evidence. The whole point is we had a pilot to look at the evidence. CCTV is expensive. We fund, as a council, 300 CCTV cameras right across the town centre, in our parks, outside the train station, in lots and lots of locations. We fund more than any other council in Hertfordshire. We pay for those to be monitored around the clock. I think that's really important. But the point about mobile CCTV is that actually it's not very mobile. It costs you over £2,500 to move. And there's questions about the effectiveness. We've got to look at what works. Every single time Veolia collect it, or it's reported by residents or members, we investigate for evidence, and I'd commend the work of the team who actually look into that. If you look at the number of fixed penalty notices, not only are we doubling the level of fixed penalty notices, but if you look at the ratio, the proportion of, say, a council like Watford compared to Labour-run Stevenage, Watford is doing an incredibly good job at prosecuting that those are responsible. So I think I would just like to make the point, I'm not blaming any victims, I'm blaming the people that do it. This council takes it seriously. We've got multiple ways in which we're seeking to address it, and I think it is important that we work across party to deal with this.
Thank you very much, Mayor Taylor. I'm going to do Councillor Tremaine, Dinser, then Stotesbury. So Tremaine, please.
Thank you, Chair. I remember that 2017 Mo Mills speech, which was terrific, and it is still an issue today. I mean, the statistics and the figures that are being presented here, they're welcome, and obviously anything that's being done in order to address fly tipping is really welcome and hopefully effective. It would be great to know whether or not there is any research that has been done in terms of the amount of the fine versus the rate of prosecution and so on, because I have to say that every single time, or pretty much every time you go out, and certainly in West Watford, you will see fly tipping. I mean, it's just the reality of it. And, Councillor Shah is quite right as well. I mean, almost every time I go past Chester Road, and I am out and about a lot in the town, you're seeing this, and it is a blight, and people are really fed up with it. And I'm kind of in interest of, on reflection of Councillor Palmer, who has passed away, that we referenced earlier on, I would like to just make the point, with my tongue slightly in my cheek, that the unwillingness to recognise the evidence of residents' own eyes is mindful of the Bertolt Brecht satire, in which the government had lost the confidence of, or the people had lost the confidence of the government, and that the solution instead was to abolish the population so that a new one could be elected in order to find a view more agreeable to the government instead. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tremaine. Councillor Dinser, please.
Yeah, I want to echo like what everybody else has said about the Veolia service. They're very good. When we report them, they're around there and they pick them up quickly. I remember Mo Mills bringing that motion to this council. I actually went around and knocked on, there's two bungalows on the corner of Chester Road and Harvest Road, and I went and knocked on their doors to ask if we can put the camera on one of their walls, and one of the ladies volunteered to put the camera on their wall to catch the perpetrators. But that didn't happen. The motion was voted down by our colleagues on the other side. And also, it's a country issue. We're here in the Watford Borough Council. We're not in a parliament discussing the issues of fly tipping in the country. We're discussing it in Watford and in our wards. It's a major issue in Vicarage Ward because a lot of the properties are rented out. When the tenants move, rather than paying for the items or moving them, they just try to dump them. I had to represent a single parent lady who had taken a tenant to make ends meet. And when the tenant moved, he actually dumped a black bag on a street corner. Veolia picked it up. They went through it. They found the address in it. And they were trying to sue the lady because the address of that property was in there. I had to intervene. and the letter had the person's name on it. I said, you can't sue the landlord because they said, oh, well, she has to give us his moving address. But he didn't pay her the full rent. He done a runner. He ain't going to leave a moving address when he's doing a runner with a rent. And then eventually I managed to win that. That happens quite regular in our ward. And the mobile camera, the clues in the name, they need to be moved around. It will cost money to move them. They have to be moved around in the whole of the town, not the wards that are just lived and run. They need to be shared in all other wards. Magazine should be used for these purposes, not for political propaganda, which goes on most of the time in that magazine. It's mellowed down a bit now, but in Dorothy's days, I counted that you go back when we ran the council. You don't want to go back to Dorothy's days. That was a lot more recent than when we ran the council. I picked one of the magazines and saw the photos. You would have thought it was paid by the Lib Dems. It's a council-paid magazine. These are the sort of issues we want to put in them. So I'll leave it at that. But and you say we're not asking for them to be moved. We are. You're not taking us seriously. You put these amendments. It's a major issue in West Watford, and you'll have to walk around. And sometimes it gets reported, sometimes it gets picked. And when it gets picked, and also if you caught people with that mobile camera, the fines will come towards the cost of that. And also there will be not unplanned pickups. I'm sure if there are not planned pickups, people might be paid overtime for that, which is a cost to the council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dinser. Councillor Stotesbury, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thanks everyone for the contributions. Just to say, I mean, Karen Clark-Taylor, I can't actually see you in the room. There we are. Hey. Has recently led a fly tip. Thanks, Councillor Bell, a litter pick. Thanks, Councillor Bell, for mentioning that. And it also links in really nicely with one of the other issues that we see across our town, which is landlords not taking enough responsibility for their properties or their businesses that are on their land, or indeed tenants as well. So Network Rail are, I would say, one such landlord that does not do enough. And TfL for your, yeah, there we go. So, it's a point to make. What I want to say is that the motion is important, and indeed fly tipping is an issue across Watford, but the amendment's really important too. The original motion as written sort of implies that the council's fairly idle, and indeed the tone of the motion sort of implies that the council's fairly idle, which it's just not. And indeed everything listed, basically there's a lot of agreement in this chamber, but we really wanted to get the amendment across to make it really clear just how seriously the council does take this issue. The motion for some reason refers to the environmental strategy. That's a cross-party document, and we had lots of task groups and finish groups on that document, and thanks again for every member who was part of that. It doesn't directly address that, but we do have strategies that I'm sure Tim and Kennedy can talk about at length about how we're putting together strategic documents and strategic responses on fly tipping. So just wanted to make that point briefly. And indeed, we are busy on this issue. It's disappointing that we're using the words scourge and plague and blight quite so heavily when actually Watford is performing really, really well. But that is not a reason to be complacent, and indeed we are not complacent at all. I myself, as all of us do, report fly tipping on a regular basis, and it is cleared up quickly. The really critical point, though, is that we are outperforming on how to prosecute those who are fly tipping. That's a really key point. We're going to continue to work on that. And I would encourage all members to tell that to their residents. This is something we take incredibly seriously. We are active on, and will continue to push forward on. So, I support the thrust, which is that we should not be complacent on this issue, and look forward to continuing to work with portfolio holders on this and with fellow members. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stotesbury. We have two right to replies. Councillor Watling.
Thought I'd be forgotten about after everything that's been said here. So obviously I'm seconding this motion, believe it or not, figure such. But obviously just want to address a couple of things that have been said. I mean, I take on board what my ward colleague just said regarding the tone of this motion, but some of the key points, what we're asking for is to continue working to promote stuff, to continue the work that is being done. So we're not saying that the council, in my opinion, I don't think we're saying the council is being idle. However, I do also want to echo what he was saying regarding TfL being bad at picking up stuff. Also to commend personally Karen Clark-Taylor for joining my campaign on litter picking in my ward as well. Not in ward, I misspoke there, but joining in with the activities that we're having across multiple wards, across Legates, across Vicarage, across Holywell, with multiple litter picks in order to pick up a bit of the slack. Maybe it wouldn't be necessary if our amendment had been backed for an extra litter picker in Catalan last budget, but that was by the by. And on the subject of budgets, I remember cast our mind back, wave a magic wand, turn us back to the budget in 2023, where I raised concerns on behalf of residents about fly tipping getting worse in my ward if you raise the fees. And I do remember, and it is on YouTube if anyone wants to go back and watch, being told that this wasn't really a problem and they're being lambasted for it really, and the mayor's summing up. And again, I still like you, Peter, don't worry. Don't worry, I don't dislike you, I still like you. And for the record, the two people you're going to hear from next, Kennedy, Tim, a lot of time for the pair of them too and the work they're doing. However, I'm a little confused with the sort of things I'm hearing, because on one hand, we're totally wrong for bringing this up. On the other hand, we're in agreement. So, and also we're talking about the amendment and saying, oh, there's a lot of consensus. Then why was there no attempt to do a joint motion on this rather than being given an amendment on the day for us to vote through? As I said, Kennedy Rodriguez, or Councillor Rodriguez, sorry, it's a little impolite to call first name, so I do apologise. We said about the fake crime scenes being up there, but interesting, like I said, go back, I was told this wasn't a problem. Last year, this wasn't a problem. Last year, there wasn't any necessary need for extra action. Last year, I was wrong to bring it up. But this year, in Calaland, there's a huge campaign on fly tipping. So first of all, I'd like to thank the council for finally listening to me and joining me on my campaign on fly tipping. So I'm just wondering what could be different last year to this year as to why there's such a focus on it in Calaland this year, and just wondering what's going on with that. But in short, I will be seconding this motion. People in my ward know my record on fly tipping. I'm out every lunch break report, which was it. Admittedly, not every lunch break do you find a fly tip, but if I'm out there, it's there. I'm going to go find it. And also on the subject of because I actually forgot to mention it then, I was getting a little bit excited about those fake crime scenes. It was quite funny that a litter pick I did with the two residents in Regent Street, we ended up having to litter pick all the fake "this is a crime scene" stickers off the floor because they were just left on the floor, which shows that maybe it wasn't the best idea. In hindsight, should have possibly emailed Councillor Rodriguez about that rather than bringing it up now. So I will concede that point, which I'm sure he would say in his summing up. So I apologise. I was not intentional that I did not bring it up. It's something just slipped my mind. But in short, I will be seconding Sarah Jane's motion.
Thank you very much. Councillor Williams, on the amendment, you're right to reply. 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair. And yes, thank you to all councillors who contributed to this vote. I think there is a lot of agreement here, really. And yes, Dennis, I like you too. Yeah. I do very much endorse what Councillor Rodriguez highlighted earlier on this matter. And whilst on my feet, I'd like to say a big thank you to Councillor Rodriguez for all that he's done in the past 6 months in the neighbourhood services portfolio. It's deeply appreciated by myself for personal reasons. I'm sure it's appreciated by the council and also the residents. Fly tipping and littering is very much a behavioural issue. How some people think it's just acceptable to fly tip is beyond belief, in my opinion. Foul and disgusting behaviour. It downgrades the area and it's left for the council to pick up and at the expense of all council taxpayers. From images obtained on one of the CCTV cameras, there was a husband and wife who came out of their property in the middle of the night. They knew what they were doing was wrong, so hence it was the middle of the night, and they dumped the mattress at the corner of the street. That's just wrong. We need to address this behavioural issue. And as previously mentioned, the enforcement fines have been increased. Messaging is strong. Special projects like the one occurring in Calaland happen. We are doing this CCTV project. And yes, out of all Hertfordshire councils, Watford is #1 for issuing fixed penalty notices. But yes, we cannot and should not rest on our laurels. And therefore we endorse the resolution points in the amended motion. I would like to appeal, and similar to all crimes, to the right authorities, that if anyone witnesses fly tipping, then please do report it into the environmental crime team. Talk to them. Tell them what has been witnessed. send in a video, the video doorbell footage if you haven't, send in photos. I have to say, 2 years ago, I witnessed fly tipping and duly reported this. It was initially disputed by the offender, and it was all seemed to be going into court with myself as the lead witness. I was happy to stand behind it, but then the offender decided to accept a fixed penalty notice. It highlights that the council's environmental crime team will enforce when witnessed and when evidenced. There's a wealth of information in regards to fly tipping campaigns, statistics, etc. on the web pages of Hertfordshire Waste Partnership. And the annual report 22-23, the last one out, makes great reading. I'd recommend it. Fly tipping is on pages 32 to 39 of the last report, and there's a feature or two about initiatives in Watford. As mentioned, Watford is number 1 for issuing fixed penalty notices in Hertfordshire, with Labour-run Stevenage at number 10. That's out of 10 councils, they're last. Watford's instances of fly tipping in 22-23 was 1,168. Far too high, of course, and should be 0. There's no doubts about that. But it's less than Hertfordshire's average and much less than in Labour-run Stevenage that in the same period reported 2,900 fly tips. These figures recorded in Labour-run Stevenage, I always say this, reminds me of the situation when Labour was last in control in Watford. Yeah, serious issues regarding fly tipping, litter, and the removal of fly tipping and litter. There was no coherent strategy to deal with it, and with inspectors finding that Watford is one of the worst performing district councils in the country. Watford, under the Liberal Democrat administration, has a strategy, is dealing with it, launches initiatives, collects it quickly, and is number 1 in Hertfordshire for issuing fixed penalty notices for offences. We will continue this great work. There'll be no let-up, and this matter is treated seriously. I commend this amended motion to council. Thank you, Chairman.
Bang on the dot, Councillor Williams. Councillor Traber, as with all motions and amendments, it starts to get a bit complicated at this point. So you're going to have 3 minutes, and within that 3 minutes, you have obviously your right to reply, and also whether you accept the amendment. So when you're ready.
Thank you. Again, I'll try not to cough. I'm going to be honest, I'm really surprised and shocked that Councillor Rodriguez doesn't agree with Labour's idea that fly tipping is a big problem in Watford. I'm going to have to come and have a little walk around your area, Rodriguez, because I think that Councillor Rodriguez, because obviously you don't live in my area, and I think that it's actually quite dishonest to say that, because like I say, I speak to different residents, not just in Vicarage, and it's something that all residents bring up with me about fly tipping. However, obviously that is your opinion, you're entitled to it. As for the thousands of pounds spent to move CCTV, I mean, surely, it's what, £2,500? Surely by moving it, by finding these perpetrators, typically ones that we know, like in Chester Road, like in other areas, if we find them and we find them, then we recuperate the money and then we can move the CCTV. Isn't that what it's all about? Yeah. And I disagree about the Watford magazine. Can I say, I have complained about this in the past, as you know. I'm really pleased to see there's only one group photograph of all the Lib Dems in this one. And I am willing to model, as I've said before, for the fly tipping advice, if ever you need a bit of a more balanced view of it, then I'm quite happy to model for that. As for victim blaming, the problem is this, and it goes back to what Councillor Stolesbury was saying as well. You know, we talk about, the council tell residents that the council are doing things, and I'm not saying that the council isn't doing things. It is, it really is. But what I hear absolutely all the time, and what you see, if you read the Watford Observer, you see it all the time as well, the council doesn't care. The council does nothing. So what we have to show them, because obviously our work is not enough, it's never going to be enough. We need to keep working. We need to keep working until there is no fly tipping. And that leads me to my final point, which is 8 years is a long time. It was 8 years ago that Mo Mills stood here and asked you and talked to you about Chester Road. As you know, Mayor Taylor, almost every single full council I bring up Chester Road. I will keep bringing it up, and I will keep campaigning, and I will keep talking about it until finally there is no fly tipping, not just in Chester Road, but in all areas, because I do care about the whole of Watford as well. So I really hope that we can agree. I have my own personal opinions about the amendment, but I can see for the greater good, it's good that we vote for it because we need to move forward on this. We all agree that fly tipping is a terrible thing. We all want to end it. And I think that's what we have to show. So I will be voting for the agreement.
So you accept the...
I accept it.
I was going to come to that. You can sit here if you want, but you weren't voted in. Now confirming Councillor Traber has accepted amendment. Thank you very much for bringing this motion to council. Thank you very much, Councillor Watling, for seconding it. And thank you very much, Councillor Riggers, Councillor Williams for the amendment as well. And everyone that spoke in this debate tonight. As the amendment has been accepted, we're now going to vote on the motion with the amendment included. All those in favour, please show.
Yeah, unanimous.
That's unanimous. So item number 13, the motion on fly tipping with the amendment has been carried. And I think it's really important. It shows that this whole council really cares about fly tipping and keeping Watford clean. I am aware it's just over an hour and a half. So if anyone does need a quick comfort break, please feel free to do so. And we'll start moving on to the other item of the next motion of the Interfaith Association. The second motion has been proposed by Councillor Dighton and seconded by Councillor Stotesbury. I now invite Councillor Dighton to move the motion, please.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I would like to welcome tonight Francois, Judith and Paul, representative of Watford Interfaith Association. It's really lovely to seeing you tonight in such difficult circumstances, I would say. It's really disheartening to hear about the interfaith network's closure due to withdrawal of government funding. Organizations like this play a crucial role in fostering understanding and harmony among different faith communities, especially during social and political tension. The story of the Watford Interfaith Association exemplifies the importance and impact of such initiatives. Founded in 1977, Watford Interfaith Association has been instrumental in promoting dialogue, cooperation, and mutual respect among various faith groups in Watford and East of England region. Their efforts in building bridges between communities have been particularly notable during challenging times such as the aftermath of the London bombing in 2005 and the COVID-19 pandemic. By facilitating communication and collaboration between different faith groups, Watford Interfaith has helped foster a sense of solidarity and support during the crisis. Initiatives like the Interfaith Pilgrimage around Watford and the establishment of the Watford Peace Garden not only promote interfaith understanding, but also contribute to the broader community well-being and cohesion. It would be deeply sad and disappointing to see the interfaith network's closure, which means the loss of such a valuable support and resources for organizations like our own Watford Interfaith Association. Therefore, I'm asking that Watford Council note the considerable of positive work done by the Watford Interfaith Association since it was established. That the Watford Interfaith Associations bring people of all faiths and non-closure together throughout their annual interfaith pilgrimage, Peace Garden, and other events and activities. Reports of the concerning rise in hate crime in the UK, including increased cases of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. The decision of the UK government to end all funding for the Interfaith Network for the UK, which will result in the closure of the charity. Watford Borough Council believes that the work of Interfaith Association has been never important like now. At this time, every effort should be made to bring faith communities together, to tackle the challenges our society faces. This is deeply regrettable that the government has decided to end all funding for the interfaith network for the UK. Council calls of the elected Mayor of Watford to write to the Right Honourable Michael Gove MP, the Secretary of State of Levelling Up, Housing and Communities, to outline of our opposition to this decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dighton. Councillor Stokesbury, I believe you're going to second this motion.
Yeah, I will second, Chair, and reserve my right to speak. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Would any members like to speak on this motion? Let me get my pen and paper ready. Councillor Bell. Councillor Favour. Councillor Khan. Councillor Watkin. Councillor Mayor. Keep going. Councillor Dinser. Councillor Clark-Taylor. I'm working that way. I'm sort of working backwards. That's okay. No, that's completely fine. Councillor Martins. Did I see another hand next to Councillor Martins? That's brilliant. So I'll just read this list back just in case I missed anyone. Councillor Bell, Councillor Zafidi, Councillor Khan, Councillor Watkin, Mayor Taylor, Councillor Dinser, Councillor Clark-Taylor and Councillor Martins. That's brilliant. I'll start with Councillor Bell, please.
Thank you, Chair. And can I say we fully support this motion, recognising the important partnership and collaborative work carried out by our faith groups and the interfaith group and all our, among all our places of worship. And I would also like to pay tribute, and it's good to see her here tonight, with Judith Brunei and all her many years, all the admin and the tireless work she's done over the years, and also Harjit, who I know is not here tonight, but the chair, and obviously Francois as well tonight. So it's important that you're here and hear us tonight. I think that long before October the 7th last year, our faith groups and the Interfaith Association had been working sensitively and often behind the scenes to encourage confidence and respect for worshippers across our faiths. It's because of much of this work, and I wouldn't say it's only, but because of much of this work that I think we have better relations between our different groups and communities than other similar towns in the north and other areas. And it is, I feel, a wrong move by the Secretary of State, Michael Gove, to end this funding for the interfaith network for the UK, as the timing, to say the least, is all wrong, when we know there have been massive rises in anti-Semitism and Islamophobia across the country. Although the reported incidences are much lower in Watford, and I mean, that's, you know, the reported ones, we know they're probably higher because people don't want to report, but the surrounding area, we need to be ever vigilant. And this decision by the government sends the wrong signal. And we know just over the border in Hertsmere, we have obviously one of the largest Jewish populations in any borough, and there's been terrible incidents and obviously anti-Semitism there, and we need to take that into account. Now, I attended the AGM of the Watford Interfaith Association 2 weeks ago, which obviously took place at the Peace Hospice. It was very good to see the fellowship and the joint working that took place, and obviously the Chief Inspector came and talked to us. I paid tribute then to the Chair, Harjit, and Judith. But I think the important thing was to see groups from so many different religious organisations working together. And I think that's the important thing about Watford, and what's actually the good thing about Watford and the interfaith. And anything that encourages that is good, and something that's negative about cutting this funding is bad. So we support this motion completely, and I hope there's anything else that we and all councillors of all faiths can do to try and get Michael Gove to reverse this. And if it's not, I'm sure a future government will reverse it. Let's hope we can do that. So, yes, I fully support this tonight. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Favour, please.
Thank you, Chair. There is increasing recognition of the importance of interfaith understanding and interfaith cooperation. Interfaith networks advocates for greater involvement in and support of programs to develop positive interfaith understanding and engagement, and to help draw more people of all ages into this vital work. It also works to increase opportunities for involvement and to help those working to put interfaith engagement at the heart of local communities and national society. We are very lucky in Watford to have the Watford Interfaith Association. It is a testament of how the diversity of faiths represented in Watford work together in unity for community cohesion in the borough. Watford Interfaith Association provides opportunities for people of all ages to get involved in projects and events which can help increase interfaith learning, dialogue and cooperation. Through interfaith dialogue, Watford Interfaith Association promotes tolerance, understanding and mutual respect between people of all faiths. Whatever the differences between the faiths, Watford Interfaith Association believes that based on shared ethical views, religious people and groups can work together with great value in service to our wider society. The Watford Peace Garden Initiative has become a vital point in the community in Watford. At the 10th anniversary of the project, many people from all communities came together to celebrate this occasion. They spoke about how much they appreciate the Peace Garden as a place of peace and tranquility where one can come spend some time, relax and reflect on life. There's no better time than now to continue the funding for this great work, but actually to request for increase in funding given what is happening in our country. I want to thank you all for coming here today to hear us, and I will support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Zafidi. Councillor Khan, please.
Thank you, Chair, and welcome Judith. And I'd just like to welcome Francois, Judith and Paul as well. We do interact a lot with the interfaith, and also on Facebook, so it's great to see. So in light of the recent tensions stemming from, in particular, the Israel and Gaza conflict, our community, like many others, faces challenges that call for an increased understanding and dialogue. This distant conflict has unexpected repercussions, bringing to forefront the need for peaceful resolutions and mutual respect within our own communities. It's a time for reflection and constructive conversation, where we should be building bridges rather than deepening any divides. I think in my capacity, I've worked tirelessly in the realm of interfaith, speaking at schools, working with community groups, various faith organisations, including Jewish ones. I've met rabbis, and I'm going to go for a cup of coffee with the Rabbi Chalk in Watford as well, to foster a spirit of understanding and unity. These type of efforts are aimed not merely at toleration, but a genuine comprehension and respect. This task, while never easy, is essential for the fabric of our diverse town. However, our task is made all the more difficult by the distressing rises in hate crime, including alarming increases in anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. And it disheartens me to see prejudice and fear-mongering worsened by some politicians who seem all too willing to espouse divisive views under the guise of populism. Just today, a donor of the Conservative Party, although not linked to faith, but certainly race and misogyny. This isn't Watford. We strive to be, and it isn't. And it's not certainly the Britain we believe in, which I was born in and love. Compounding our challenges is this new definition which is going to be proposed by the said Mr. Gove. Just this evening, the Archbishop of Canterbury, he said in a tweet, he says the government's new definition of extremism not only inadvertently threatens freedom of speech, but also the right to worship, and risks disproportionately targeting Muslim communities. Labelling a multifaceted problem as hateful extremism may vilify the wrong people and risk yet more division in our nation. The Archbishop of Canterbury there, asking for a rethink. The Watford Interfaith Association has stood as a beacon of hope since 1977, bringing people together of all faiths and none, fostering unity through events such as the annual Interfaith Pilgrimage, which I've done most times, and the Peace Garden. The importance of this work cannot be overstated, especially in our current environment. Yet the government's decision to cut all funding for the interfaith network for political reasons undermines these crucial efforts. Mr. Gove does not like the biggest Muslim organisation, the Muslim Council of Britain, and because of that, he's cut the funding for the interfaith network because one of the members was a member of Muslim Council of Britain. I support this motion, absolutely. We must not only acknowledge the significant contributions of the Watford Interfaith Association, but also recognise that their work is now more vital than ever. In an era where division runs deep, their efforts to bring our communities together are indispensable. As such, it's deeply regrettable that the government has chosen to end funding for the interfaith network. This decision is short-sighted, counterproductive, stripping essential support from an organisation dedicated to fostering an understanding and cooperation between different faith communities. And I welcome the elected mayor to take the immediate action. I welcome that. We must voice our collective opposition to this decision by writing to Mr. Gove. And it's our duty to stand up for what is right, to support the invaluable work of interfaith groups, to ensure that our effort to foster unity are not marred by political point scoring in an election year. Let's come together, reaffirm our commitment to interfaith dialogue, work tirelessly to ensure that our community remains a place of understanding, respect and peace. Thank you.
Yeah, well done. Very good.
Thank you very much, Councillor Khan. Councillor Watkin.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm going to rise up and start by saying that I'm going to speak now as the chairman of the Standing Advisory Council for Religious Education, which is quite a mouthful, I grant you. It is actually the council responsible for the curriculum that's taught in all Hertfordshire schools for some particular reason, which I can't begin to tell you. There's one item, one area, which is actually delegated down to the local authority. And the driving force behind what SACRE, as is generally known, is about teaching our children respect for each other, for each other's faith, for each other's cultures. And we go to great lengths. It's called the worldview, so that our children will be better educated, better understanding of this wonderful complex world that we live in, which is so obviously around us in Watford. And I just want to start with that point. And Councillor Khan has mentioned the political short-sightedness, anger that just pervades this decision. And I'm going to quote, if I may, an item that came out of the Church Times when it described the background to this decision that Mr. Gove has decided to drive through. I mean, first of all, Mr. Gove said that he was minded to withdraw its funding because of the reputational risk to the government and because a member of the Muslim Council of Britain was one of the charity's trustees. The government does not engage with the Muslim Community Council of Britain after a former member appeared to condone attacks on the British Navy in 2009. The Interfaith Network said that it had not been asked to prescribe members of any individual, nor had it previously been advised by the department to expel any MCB member because of its government's policy of non-engagement. The IFN has worked since 1987 to advance public knowledge and mutual understanding of the teachings, traditions and practices of the different faith communities, its website says. Its board includes people of the largest faith groupings, including the MCB, as well as smaller faith groups and organisations promoting interfaith relations. The government has funded IFN since 2001, and in 2022, the charity received government grants of 212,000 of its 343,000 income. But in December, the Daily Telegraph reported that officials in Mr. Gove's department were concerned that the Interfaith Network, a non-political organisation, I have to stress, had not condemned the 7th of October Hamas-led attack on southern Israel. It also reported that 2 members of the IFN had asked the government to stop its funding. One of them, scriptural reasoning, cited the MTB as the reason. Basically, this is an act of a bitter man damaging the core of our whole belief in interfaith in our community. It is an appalling decision, and I totally and absolutely support the mayor's. the motion for the mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Watkin. Mayor Taylor.
Yeah, thank you. I'll do my best not to repeat what others have said. I would like to thank Councillor Dychen and Councillor Stokes for bringing this forward. And I don't know if I have to declare an interest. I'm the patron of the Watford Interfaith Association. I'm not on their board, Carol, don't complain. But it is an honour to have that role. And one of the things that strikes you about the Watford Interfaith Association is it brings people together, but it does really practical things. I think, you know, the way that we have the pilgrimage each year, that a large number of people take part in. I know for many people, the first time they do it, it might be the first time that they've stepped foot in a gurdwara, a mosque, a synagogue, a church, and to have those open and honest conversations. I think the Peace Garden has actually been a really important part of their work, because it means that we can come together in a beautiful setting. I would pay tribute to my predecessor, Dorothy Thornhill, who helped make that happen, working with the Parks team, local councillors and others. I think that's been really important at times of difficulty, when there have been potential, you know, for tension in the community, that we've been able to come together there and to pray together, to be together and to stand in solidarity. Just picking up on a couple of points that have been made, I think it's important to recognise that we have seen rising Islamophobia and anti-Semitism, and that community tensions have real life consequences. Yes, the interfaith does important work, and it is really important when it comes to criminality. One of the interesting things from the AGM that Councillor Bell mentioned, the Chief Inspector was talking about reported hate crimes in Watford being thankfully relatively low. But the point was that there's many cases that aren't reported. And I think as councillors, it's quite important that when we're out there in the community to recognise that sometimes people might not want to speak to the police for whatever reason, that hate crimes can be reported. For example, here at Watford Borough Council, I think it'd be helpful perhaps to share those locations where hate crimes can be reported, because there's a number of places where they can, for people who might not wish, for whatever reason, to speak to the police. The final couple of things I'd like to say: I'm grateful as the mayor of this town that Watford has many very active faith groups that do a huge amount of stuff when it comes to food banks, to supporting people in need, but also that our faith groups are outward looking, that they don't just look inwards and to serve their own community, but all of them actually open their doors and seek to serve the community, people of any faith and no faith. And that one of the consequences of having a really effective Watford Interfaith Association has been that you see the genuine friendship between faith leaders across the town, that those bonds are incredibly strong, and so that when I go and speak to other council leaders, they're amazed at how strong our community cohesion is, that we're a united town. We all remember the times when there was rioting that didn't come to Watford. There's been many instances where we can see the impact that they're making. So I completely agree with Councillor Watkin that it's just incredible. I mean, it's a disgraceful decision by the government. It's incredibly short-sighted for a very petty political reason to not see the importance of the UK network. And of course, very happy to write to him on this matter.
Thank you very much, Mayor Taylor. Councillor Dinser.
Yeah, I will cut mine really short. I don't want to repeat everything that's already been said. I want to welcome the interfaith group, Judith, Francois and Paul. The interfaith walk in Watford, I took part in that a few times, and that taught me a lot. The first time I set my foot in a synagogue and other religious buildings, that taught me what goes on in there. And I'm normally going to Watford Gurdwara on Sunday, and I'm a Sikh and I know about Sikhism, but not a good example, wearing a cap rather than a turban. But there you go. Well, in Watford, we have a lot of different interfaith groups that really get on with each other. And as people have said, there has not been any tension, because excellent work done by these guys, and also educating everybody. And I took part in, the Peace Garden, in planting one of the trees on behalf of the different communities and different religious groups. So I'll keep it short, and I'll thank the interfaith group, and I fully support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dinser. Councillor Clark-Taylor, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think what I have to say is more personal than it is political. My family ties to religious organisations in Watford go back quite a long way. My grandfather was the minister of the Paddock Road Baptist Church in Oxley Village back in the 1980s, And he was also the West Watford Baptist Church minister, in fact, chaplaining a number of members of the 1984 Watford side that reached the FA Cup final. My family's connections to the church are strong to this day, and we still have a number of ordained people in the family. So for me, my Christian faith growing up in Watford was a huge part of my life. I grew up going to St James Road Baptist Church in West Watford, and the activities that we undertook as a youth group really shaped my life, from sleep outs in the church hall garden area, which it's really nostalgic for me the other week, sleeping out at Vicarage Road Stadium, just repeating the things I used to do with my church as a teenager, to taking part in the Christians Across Watford noise event every Maybank holiday weekend, which involved going to different parks across Watford, doing huge clean-up projects, cleaning up graffiti. We went to Harwood's Rec. We rebuilt structures there before it was all redone and made into a brand new facility. My church really shaped my life and my contribution to this town, and it feels really fitting that I get to carry on doing that work today, not as a church representative, but here as a councillor. Growing up in West Watford, you get to see a beautiful harmony of different faiths together. Attending Lawrence Haynes, where the most prominent religion represented in the school was Islam, the protocol was you don't bring in sweets for your birthday if they contain gelatine, because not everybody can eat them. I went on to Watford Grammar, where the headmistress was the incredible Dame Helen Hyde. Helen Hyde took me to Auschwitz on a school trip. She is somebody who makes Margaret Thatcher look like a poodle. She is the real Iron Lady for anyone who has never met Dame Helen Hyde. The thing was, going to Auschwitz in the snow in February and seeing how stark and how huge it wasn't the thing that stuck with me the most. The thing that stuck with me the most was sitting in a small group and hearing my amazing headmistress tell us that her grandfather had been traced to one of 2 possible concentration camps, one of which was Auschwitz. It's the first time she'd ever felt brave enough to take a trip to Auschwitz, which was potentially where her grandfather lost his life. To see a woman of that strength and magnitude break down at what had happened in her family was the thing that stuck with me most of all. I went on to university, I studied theology, I tried to learn Hebrew. I absolutely loved learning about different faiths in my time at university. Watford has shaped my life through its different religious communities. The strength and the power of the good that we did for this town through my church youth group, through Christians Across Watford, and the many other contributions that faith groups make to this town is something that I have seen personally and I still get to live out to this day. Together, we are so much stronger than we are apart. And today, looking around the world in 2024, there has never been a more important time for us to come together and carry on and bring that work together.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clark-Taylor. And last but not least, Councillor Martins, please.
Thank you, Chairman. You won't be surprised to know after all of that, I really have very little to say. How do you follow that? I mean, there are just 2 things I wanted to say, though. This is about the letter from Mr. Gove to stop funding IFN. And I think we mustn't forget the critical role IFN plays in actually supporting groups like WIFA. So, Mr. Mayor, when you do write to Mr. Gove and tell him how crass he's being with this silly decision of his, and I choose that word very deliberately, he's supposed to be the minister for levelling up. This is actually dividing the whole country and leveling down. WIFAs across the country will be screaming. Communities will be broken because they haven't got a place like the Peace Garden to come together and unite and show how well we work together. So my only plea to the mayor is, I know he's normally a very nice, kind, gentle person, but if he could find his most angriest being in him and make this letter really very critical. He needs to be shamed into reversing this decision. And that'll only happen if the letter from us is damning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Martins. Thank you. Councillor Stokesbury.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, the Mayor gets to write his strongly worded letter to somebody else. That's good to hear. But no, on a serious point, thank you everyone for your contributions. I've got a lovely speech written here, but pretty well everything in the document has already been said and said so well. So thank you very much everyone for your contributions. Completely echo welcoming our guests here tonight. I've been on the pilgrimage. I know many councillors have as well, the Watford Interfaith Pilgrimage, and it is wonderful. For those who haven't had the chance, really would encourage you to go. My first time in a Gurdwara, actually, so it was really wonderful, and the food is also excellent too. So it really is a really special day. But it speaks to just how wonderful Watford is, and it really is one of the jewels in the crown. How strong our interfaith community is. It's something to be immensely proud of. And thank you to Councillor Watkin for almost stealing my speech word for word. Mr. Gove should be shamed into turning this over. It's an outrageous decision. It's purely partisan, purely political, and really pathetic. So thank you really for making that point. The only thing that I had in my speech that I wanted to also mention is it's the interfaith network, but it's also for those who are of no faith as well, to come and meet people of faith. It's a really, really important part. Too often tensions and fear is what stems and leads into anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, phobia in general. And one of the best things you can do to counter that is to learn one another, to go and celebrate and enjoy each other's lives, to hear people's beliefs, to hear people's views, to have a place where you can ask questions and challenge one another, but in a really safe environment where you're just trying to explore each other's worlds. That's one of the best ways we can counter phobia and anti-Semitism and Islamophobia in this country. So this is completely the wrong time, unfortunately. Societal tensions are particularly high at the moment, but we shouldn't be looking at government cutting funds for this network. We should be looking for government to find ways to support these sorts of associations and networks more. So thank you, colleagues, all of you, for your contributions tonight. I'm looking forward to passing this motion, and we'll look forward to Mr. Gove's reply. But we'll go from this place and really raise this point up. This is not an appropriate thing for government to be doing, and I'm sure we'll all be calling for reversal and the opposite to be happening instead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stotesbury. Councillor Dyson, would you like to round up, please?
Thank you, Chair. I have 4 books in my hand. Let's talk. This is what happened tonight. Interfaith Week. It's all about the discussion what we had just a few minutes ago. Connect. Next step. The government, the leading government, is supposed to care for the community, for the residents, for country. I don't want to bring politics in this topic because it's such an important and delicate topic. But it's deeply disappointing that the government not seeing and not care enough. And once again, Watford community is above politics. Once again, we standing tonight in this chamber and discussing what is good for our community, regardless of our political beliefs, and that's the beauty of Watford. We would never ever allow politics to go into communities groups, and we are so grateful for the Watford Interfaith work, what has been done across many, many years, but also any other community groups who work with Watford Interfaith Community Association, because without their work, we wouldn't be where we are here tonight with the work what has been done and recognition of all of you across the chamber, the importance of it and your support. It's, I'm sure, very welcomed, but not also by myself, but also by the Watford Interfaith Association and the colleagues who are sitting with us tonight. Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart and from the all community groups and the interfaith itself, because it's such important that we say strongly, no, we don't want to cut funding, but it's such a valuable group is what we have not only in our town, but across the country. Thank you for your support.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Councillor Dighton, for bringing this motion to the council. And this now brings us to the vote on the second motion. I think it's going to be quite an easy vote, but I will carry out the vote anyway. All those in favour, please show. That's unanimous and carried. On behalf of Watford Council, thank you very much for coming along tonight, for all the important work you've carried out, and we'll obviously keep you updated with this letter. I mean, I'll personally deliver it with the mace bearer to the House of Parliament if need be, So I think the people of Watford have really spoken and will be getting behind this. So thank you very much. Everyone that has spoken, really, really tremendous, bringing the people together. This brings us on to the final motion for the council this evening, which is stop the Conservatives punishing local councils for building houses. The final motion has been proposed by Councillor Glenn Saffrey and seconded by Mayor Taylor. I now invite Councillor Glenn Saffrey to move the motion.
Thank you, Chair. I feel almost tawdry rising to speak about the planning system after those powerful and important sentiments from my colleagues, but I'd just like to sort of add my tributes to our guests for all their work to promote dialogue and mutual respect. You look at the world now, it's never been more important, and I agree with everything that's just been said. But I'm proposing this motion tonight because as of December last year, we once again find ourselves in the bizarre position of being named and shamed by the Conservative government for failing to see enough development in our borough. As a result, we've been punished with the continued imposition of a presumption in favour of development that weakens local people's say over what is appropriate for our town in service of an arbitrary and unfair target dictated to us by ministers. Everyone in this chamber will know from speaking to fellow Watford residents that the pace and scale of development in Watford due to government targets is an issue for many of them, particularly as this encourages developers to build taller buildings. They rightly worry about where the public services to support new residents will come from and will be frankly amazed by the government's repeated insistence that we are not building enough, and insulted that they should do this while continuing to dally over vital investment in our hospital and other services. I also believe everyone in this chamber acknowledges the severe shortage of housing affecting the country as a whole. This pushes up house prices and threatens to lock a generation of young people out of the dream of home ownership altogether. It drives many people toward poverty and in extreme cases homelessness through soaring rents and mortgage costs. That is why Watford Borough Council under this Liberal Democrat administration strove so hard to become one of the few local authorities in the country to devise and deliver an up-to-date local plan approved by the government's own planning inspectorate and adopted in late 2022. This plan sets out our ambition to deliver the new homes that we need, prioritising affordability, quality and sustainability, while also preserving the heritage and character of the area. Yet any ambition for growth has to be supported by investment in infrastructure and public services to support it. It must also prioritise social, affordable and family-sized housing as our local plan does. Small flats in tall buildings will not deliver the housing mix we need to fix the housing crisis. Housing delivery must be distributed fairly across the country, including in the Conservatives' rural heartlands. The government's approach is sadly the opposite. They want to pile more and more development into dense urban areas, allowing developers to hide behind viability assessments to avoid delivering social housing, while starving public services of the investment required to support communities. They now have the effrontery to punish this council for seeking to address this national crisis in a way that suits our area best. That is why this motion argues for an end to punitive policies toward councils making efforts to address housing shortages and the reform of arbitrary housing targets to make them fairer and more evenly spread across the country. We need to relieve the pressure on Watford and similar areas, and I very much hope colleagues will support the motion unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Saffrey. Invite Councillor Mayor Taylor to second the motion.
Thank you. I second the motion, Mr. Right.
Thank you very much. Do any members wish to move any amendments? No? Any members wishing to speak, please raise your hand. Okay, I'll go from left to right as always. Councillor Bell, Councillor Trobar, Councillor Jeffrey. I'll go Councillor Devonish, Councillor Stotesbury. Anybody else? Councillor Bell, please begin.
Thank you, Chair. And I'll just check. Oh, he's round the pillar. Is that Councillor Saffrey around there? I thought we had a third Councillor Saffrey because he's had a haircut since the. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah. So it is that Councillor Saffrey. No, but we fully support your motion, Glenn, and from the Liberal Democrats here. Yeah, we do need a government to massively boost house building, and Labour have pledged, of course, that 1.5 million homes over the next Parliament. And it's time for that new generation of new towns, I hear you say, remembering those towns created by the Labour government after the war. And we think of Tim Williams' favourite place, Stevenage, and of course Hemel Hempstead. And I can take Tim to the best places in Stevenage, don't worry. And those, yeah. when we think of Stevenage, Hemel Hempstead, and of course separately the garden cities in the interwar years. So with us, of course, we think of Letchworth Garden City and of course Welling Garden City. And of course all the work that's being done, obviously as the Mayor's obviously involved with the South West Hearts Partnership at the moment, which may lead to a new town very near us, although not in Watford. But, you know, and I know people will say, well, that's just moving the problem on out of our area. But I think all the councils need to work together on this. And I mean, there may be plans to hand mayors greater housing and planning powers. And I'm not sure that these will be for a small district council like Watford, to be fair, or more likely to be for city and metropolitan mayors. We can see brownfield developments fast-tracked and reforms to accelerate planning decisions. And again, clearly a small district council like Watford can only do a small amount towards tackling the housing crisis. And because of our size, it's going to need innovative partnership work between adjoining councils, as I said, developers and housing associations, and principally, obviously, in Watford, our own Watford Council Housing Trust, but all the other smaller ones as well. And we would like to see changes on criteria to enable more genuinely affordable homes and, of course, more social rented units, not just on the Riverwell, but where possible in other parts of Watford. So we agree with the main points of the motion, and councils that are genuinely doing their part to deliver new homes as best they can shouldn't, of course, be penalised, as you say in the 3 resolutions. And we agree, as the resolution states, that the Secretary of State should reform national policy to make housing targets fairer and more evenly spread. I notice you don't say to get rid of housing targets, and you know, I won't go into. I know that Liberal Democrats had their issues at their conference, and I know that the leadership didn't want them to, well, wanted to get rid of the targets, and of course I know the actual membership actually wanted to keep the targets. So you know, I understand that. So you're saying here though not to get rid of them, but to make them fairer and genuine for those who are actually doing their best, and I appreciate you had to do your best. So that's fine. And as far as I implied, we of course agree with the final paragraph to instigate that fairer assessment of house building efforts and encourage that closer dialogue between local government. And we know, I've said here when I brought the motion about a better deal for local government, the LGA, the LGRU, as I'm sure you all know, have brought a lot of good plans forward on housing and the national government to address the housing crisis more effectively. And of course, whether we, you know, with the last days of this government and hopefully a new Labour government, new government, we will be able to, I hope, have a better, closer relationship on housing as well as other issues. So yes, I fully support this motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Councillor Traber.
Thank you. I sit on the DMC Housing Committee, thank you. It's been a long night. Sorry, I'll be quick. Along with many of my colleagues, and I'm sure that Councillor Peter Jeffrey can tell you what a thorn inside I am to him and to officers. But because we want the right buildings, we want them in the right places, and that's, I don't want to reiterate what my fellow councillor Nigel Bell has said. It's important to build houses, and not just on beautiful places like ancient, much loved allotments, but also on brownfield sites and on sites that we can properly develop. My 3 children, I don't think will ever be able to buy a house in Watford. That's the truth of the matter. So we need more social housing. We need more affordable housing. And I completely support this motion. And I think it's a great motion. So I thank you for it.
Thank you, Councillor Traber. Councillor Jeffrey, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm an avid reader of the Watford Observer, as I'm sure you all are. And I don't know if it's coincidence or what, but on page 33 of the current issue, actually it quotes Councillor Termaine and Councillor Stotesbury, but more interestingly, perhaps, it has a piece by our fun-sized MP. And he criticises the council, trotting out his often quoted but equally often debunked theory that the council, in producing its local plan, failed to challenge the government's targets on housing. I mean, what I think we all know is that to complete our local plan and get it adopted. That wouldn't have been possible if we hadn't adopted the government of the time's targets. But I quote him saying, the seeds of that decision, the decision not to challenge those targets, the seeds of that decision are now taking root, not just the tall towers, but the closure of Prism and the, quote, war against cars, whatever that is. Our MPs claim that our local plan housing targets are too high. Is interesting in contrast with the recent letter the council has received from the housing ministry, putting us into special measures, as we've heard, for failing their unfair housing delivery test and not building enough. Apparently we are a Schrodinger's council, simultaneously setting housing targets which are too high for our MP, but not delivering enough housing to satisfy the Secretary of State. It would seem that the Tory government are determined to undermine councils in general, democratic powers to decide the quantity and quality of housing which gets approved, particularly in our case here in Watford. We can, of course, only hope, and we're working towards this, that the Tory government will be voted out later this year. I support this motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jeffrey. The best thing about fun-size MPs is you can lose them down the back of the sofa and never find them again. Councillor Devenish.
Well, I'm going to speak on a similar vein, and let me start with something that I wanted to ask everyone to please clarify. When you're on the doorsteps, when you're having conversations, you've mentioned it there about the tall towers. I always have to correct people and make it clear these are the Tory towers, not the other name that was bandied about and shared on doorsteps. So I would really request that everyone is absolutely clear about where these directives come from. The very first time I met the mayor, I decided to go along to the meeting. In my mind, we're going to have a few words and really have it out about why is the mayor and the council, why are they building all of these tower blocks that nobody wants? And the mayor then put me straight and said, actually, these targets come from the Conservative government. He made it very clear that Watford Council was pushing back against those targets, and also made it clear that there are times that the council will make a decision which is right for the town of Watford. It goes to appeal and that is overturned. Yet I have lost count of the number of times I will be on the doorstep and somebody mentions Taylor's Towers, and I have to be clear, these are the Tory towers. So number one, everyone be clear, as we are tonight, that this is a directive and a drive from the Conservative government. I do sometimes wonder if Watford is a victim of its own success, because I always say we punch well above our weight in terms of the vibrancy of the town, the shopping centre, the facilities, the amenities, the connections to the rest of the country. And maybe there is a perception that then we have room for all of these other things. I have no idea when the Secretary of State last came to Watford, but if he hasn't been here for a while, perhaps we should invite him for a walk around to actually see the actual footprint. Because reading through that statement and seeing after all of these years that they are still pushing for these targets, which are not right for the footprint of Watford, if we're all singing from the same hymn sheet, please continue that conversation out on the doorsteps, because the residents need to know that this is not the council just putting things up willy-nilly. We're all in this together, pushing against this, that we have a development that is right for our town and for the future of our town, particularly when it comes to the affordable housing, because many people have already said that they foresee a time where their children, grandchildren, etc. can't afford to live in this wonderful place. So if we can all be clear about where these targets come from and that they are indeed the Tory towers, that would be very much appreciated. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Devenish. Councillor Stotesbury, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you all, and very well said. So I really just wanted to build on what Councillor Jeffrey has been saying. Indeed, the Schrödinger metaphor is wonderful. I really appreciate that. It was very, very good indeed. One of the things we've been calling for the longest time as a council is infrastructure first. My dad's an engineer, and whenever I would why I became an engineer probably is my dad. Whenever we go on a family trip, we'd drive down the road and he'd be like, I built that bridge, I was involved in that railway, here's what and that for me, infrastructure has always been a part of what I've been aware of. And anyone who knows me will know that I'm fairly nerdy in that direction. But the challenge that Watford has, and one of the reasons we are really put up hard against it by these targets, are the town is a relatively old town. The layout of the roads were built in 1930s, many of them, and indeed, infrastructure can only go so far in a really small footprint. We've been calling for infrastructure to come first. So I was really pleased, and Councillor Bell made reference to our housing targets earlier. I was really pleased to see Labour's also adopted one of the policies we've been charging for a while, which is these new garden cities. And indeed, there's a good history in Britain of building these garden cities. It's a way to deliver infrastructure and housing. It's a way to piece the two together. And we're often set in this position where infrastructure is not being delivered by either the county or by government, and then the borough, through its planning decisions, is forced to make decisions which just aren't fair on the long-term prosperity or the best possible outcome for individual sites. So we just need to see wholesale change. I think this motion really highlights just how important it is to see proper policy change out of government. Someone made reference to the election later this year, maybe it was Councillor Jeffrey as well. Well, it can't come soon enough, can it? There will be a change. Our MP recently, again on Twitter, tried to attack the Watford Liberal Democrats and their local plan, etc. You may have seen that. The tweets were rapidly deleted after he realised that we'd recently received, I presume, because he recently realised we received that Schrödinger letter from Mr. Gove. We just need someone who actually understands what's going on in the town and actually understands these issues, rather than playing really straight down the line partisan politics every time he makes a statement. So thank you very much to Labour for supporting this motion. I look forward to seeing just how much teeth the letter from the Mayor has on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stokesbury. Mayor Taylor, you're right to reply.
Thank you very much. I'll try my best not to repeat things that other people have said. I think the first thing to acknowledge is when we are out talking to residents, whatever their view on this about particular developments in Watford, I think when you have the conversation, most people actually believe we have a housing crisis. We need more homes. We need those to be good quality. We need infrastructure around to support them. We want them to be sustainable and all the rest of it. But the question is then how to respond to it. And I think people often believe that the council kind of acts in a vacuum, and we have kind of unlimited say over how we respond to the housing crisis, and the points that have been made by others, including Councillor Devonish, about the fact that we don't operate in a vacuum. There's particular cases like 50 Clarendon Road, I think is a really good example. This council said that wasn't appropriate for this town. It was too high, it was poor quality, lack of light, didn't comply with our local plan. And the government turned around and said, yeah, we acknowledge it doesn't meet your local plan, but we're going to tell you to build it anyway. And that kind of sums up the system that we find ourselves in. So our position is clear. We should be building new towns and not just endless tower blocks. I suspect that Councillor Traybar will agree with me on this, that also the point is we shouldn't just be building stuff in the southeast of England, that we have an economy and a country that's overly focused on one part of the country and urban areas in the southeast, and actually we should see growth right across the country. I think the key thing then is, well, what is the national position? What does the government say around this? And I think the MP's position on this is entirely disingenuous. He continues to say that targets are a choice, if we deliver them or not. We've got a choice. If it's a choice, why are we getting told in December that you've not met the target, you've got to produce an action plan to say how you're building more? There's going to be a presumption in favour of sustainable development. If all of those things are happening, then how can that possibly be the case if we've got a choice whether or not we meet this target? He either doesn't understand very, very basic points about our planning system, or he is trying to mislead local residents. I think all of us have to make that point repeatedly. The second thing I would just say is that there's a possibility that we might have a new government after the next general election. And for me, the key thing is that whichever government we have recognises that we want to empower local residents to make these decisions. And all the noises from the Labour leadership aren't positive. We had the leader of the Labour Party last October saying that he would, and I quote, bulldoze through local opposition to housing developments. That doesn't sound like a leader who's going to empower local communities to make these choices. So I hope the Labour councillors are making that point to him, that actually we don't want a system, we don't want a new government that repeats the mistakes of the current government, and we actually want a system which empowers local communities to make the best choices for their areas.
Thank you very much, Mayor Taylor. Invite Councillor Safri to round up, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Just echo what everybody said. It's good to see an outbreak of unity on this. There is, I think, in the debate it was mentioned about the need to collaborate with neighbouring authorities, and we're continuing to work through the South West Herts Joint Strategic Partnership to do that. Just to pick up on, the Mayor's mentioned it, but Councillor Bell spoke about how housing targets are applied with it. I would note that his leader, Sir Keir Starmer, has pledged the 1.5 million national house building target. We remain to be seen how that would be applied. I think there's been noises again that it would be focused on brownfield. So I would hope that any prospective occupant of number 10 Downing Street would listen to our message today loud and clear, that it's about, empowering local people ultimately to have the final say about what is appropriate. But I welcome the unity on this, and I thank everybody for their support.
Thank you, Councillor Safri, for bringing this motion to the council. Now brings us to the vote. Item number 15, stop the Conservatives punishing local councils for building houses. All those in favour, please show. That's carried. Thank you very much, everyone, for your input tonight. It's been a long night. It's been very worthwhile. That now concludes the meeting. Good.